Welcome to the Sheffield FC Women YouTube channel. I'm here with the manager, Graham Abercrombie. Graham, how are you doing, first of all?
I'm great, thanks, mate. Yeah, coping as best I can, like everybody else, really, and yeah, trying to see some positives out of it all and use my time effectively. So yeah, not as bad as could be.
Brilliant. If I can just take you back about a month or so now when we beat Hull, just reflect on that again quickly. How satisfying was that again, beating a team and then going out the bottom two?
Yeah, it was really important. I said on the day how important it was to psychologically be at the bottom two, and it was a terrific performance. And I mentioned pre-game that day on video. It was a real marker for us to show people who and what we were, and because we'd had such a tough run really since I've been in against who we've had to face, and we faced a team which were still a solid unit and still a good team at the division and at the level, but we really did. We put them to school, really. We schooled them on the day for 90 minutes. And although they had a couple of chances, listen, teams are going to have chances, but we had far superior possession, far superior opportunities. And we just played brilliant on the day. And that's the team I expected. That's what I expected from the team that day. I hoped rather than absolutely certain, but really I knew it deep down. So really happy with that result, really happy with the performance. And I think more importantly, the players started to believe in all the things we've been working on. It came together that day, and they all left on top of the world, really.
I know you mentioned after that game you're going to get them in just after the New Year, or just after Christmas, I think it was. How much training did you actually get in before it was locked down?
Yeah, it was bonkers, really. We had one training session, and that was it. So we had the one training session, which was a good session, lively. We just had the one, and yeah, that's frustrating. We was looking forward. We'd got a game lined up in the FA Cup away at Sunderland at the Stadium of Light, believe it or not. So that would have been a terrific experience for everybody, but we just got caught by the lockdown. So one training session, and then we sort of lost everybody as to where we are today, really. So yeah, that was on the back of a good result. We was looking to kick on and push on, but we'll pick it up whenever the time is. We'll pick up from where we left off. There's no doubts.
It sort of show your look this season as well. When we've had like decent results, like say Huddersfield 2-1, that was a great game, and the teams like look pick it up, then they locked us down again, and this time we beat Hull, been locked down again. Is that sort of the rhythm you're sensing as well this season?
Well, it does feel like that, and it's extremely difficult for all teams, whether you're top or whether you're bottom, to pick up after such a huge break. You imagine in the summer, at the end of the season, you have potentially 6 to 8 weeks off, and then you come back and you have a 6 to 8 week pre-season. And what's happening this time? We've had a month off, and now we're looking like we're going to have an extended version of this. So it's going to be with Christmas and then another 6 weeks and potentially extended. You're looking at 8 to 10 to 12 weeks off, and some rumours that if we do come back, let's say March, early March, mid-March, you get 2 weeks training and you're back into it to try and squeeze the season in. Well, a 2 week training session, a 2 week almost pre-season, isn't going to prepare people properly, regardless of your level, regardless of where you're at in your division. The well-being of the players has really got to be taken into account here, I think, and it's not easy to pick up after 2 weeks, because ultimately at our level, you're 2 training sessions a week. If you squeeze a Sunday in as well, because you're not playing fixtures, you might be at 3 a week, but you get 6 training sessions, you're back in. Very difficult, and ultimately dependent on the depth of your squad, it's whether you can cope with the injuries then, and I'm not so sure.
I think you'll find as well with a lot of full-time teams are getting advantages, because they're training more often, because obviously they are full-time.
Oh yeah, there's no doubts, and that's why the Super League and the Championship have continued, and they've continued to train. And the difference is when you have weather delays, postponements through the weather, like you can do. Last year, for instance, last season, we lost lots of games to the weather. So we haven't played many games, since I came in. But the bottom line was we still trained. So although you weren't playing, and training becomes a little bit dire because, you're training for the training's sake, at least you're still training. This situation is wholly different because you've done nothing whatsoever other than your personal bits. And your personal bits, they're 10-20% max of what you do at training. There's only so much you can do to be fit and strong and healthy and dynamic. there's nothing like the team game, nothing like the moving parts of a training session and the focus of what you're doing. So, for all these bits that everyone's trying their best just to do something for their own mental health as much as physical, it's nothing like training. So if we do come back and we only get 2 weeks, I fear for everybody, not just us. It's the game in general I fear for. So we'll see. And I am speculating, of course, but the rumor is 2 weeks, and I'm not so sure about that.
Talk to me about the fitness of the team. Is there much conversations going on with the players? Are you speaking to them regularly? Is there sort of a fitness plan in place to keep them active and fit?
Well, do you know what? It's a brilliant question, really, because it's not the obvious answer that you might expect. And we've done very little together as a group. Now, there's a real meaning and purpose to that. Obviously, I've learned over this course of the last 12 months with the lockdowns and everything, and I've certainly watched and looked at other clubs doing so much, and I've made a decision really that I think it's best if we let people just get on with their own devices. I think there's far too much going on. There's far too many rules to have to comply to then feel that you almost have to jump into a Zoom meeting or you have to do training sessions 3 or 4 times a week. I think that can become onerous, and really it should be fun. It should be us together in the best possible situation we can be virtually. But actually, I think it's a weight too much. And that's no criticism on people who've done a lot, because I think I'm envious of lots of clubs who've done lots together. And I think there is a, am I right, am I wrong, you'll never know scenario. There's a counterfactual piece to everything, whether you do it this way or that way. But I think ultimately I've been happy to let people go about their business really and cope, because we're all individual. There's so many various scenarios surrounding everybody, and not everything fits. So it's very difficult. So I didn't want to put the onus on, you've got to do this and you've got to do that. So we're trusting people to do their own thing. And what's happened, it's been more informal, lots of phone calls, speaking to players one-to-one, 10 minutes at a time, nothing too heavy, nothing where they feel like they've got to say, I'm doing lots of exercise, great. Sometimes it's just a chat, how you doing and what you're up to, and are you still working, are you still doing this, are you keeping yourself occupied? And actually football doesn't really come into the conversation too much, other than we're all missing it a little bit. So I've gone down that different route really. I didn't want to put too much extra stress and strain on people by saying this is what we're doing and that's what you've got to do. And no way. Listen, that's what pre-season's for. If we get 2 weeks, we'll do 2 weeks. If we get a month, we'll do a month. We'll do what we need to do and ramp it up at the level that's required. So, but ultimately, everybody is doing something just because they want to do it for themselves. So I'm pleased about that, just for their own well-being, really, and mental sort of state as much as anything else.
Definitely. That is an answer to this question, but is there any incomings or outgoings that have happened in the past month?
No, we believe it or not, we put a little list together for the new year. So I will start recruiting as soon as we're back. And but I haven't touched base with anybody. I haven't reached out to any clubs, because knowing what situation we were in, it was pretty pointless. And ultimately, I need to get people at the training ground. If they say, yeah, we're willing to have a little chat with you, I want them to come and see training. I want them to know that it's dynamic and it's as good as training as I've ever seen. I want them to know that the group is a brilliant group of people, human beings who really stick together and have got a common sort of fight and cause. And you can't do that via a chat. And I'd like to sign you without adding to that, embellishing really what you're talking about with the real truth. So I want people to do that. So yeah, we're definitely going after people soon. There'll be 3 or 4 coming in if I get my way, and we'll be excited about that. Everybody's excited about adding to the group, whether that's me and the staff or whether that's players. Everybody wants to improve and keep going, and knowing that competition for shirts is really important, but bringing quality in is the crucial element.
Brilliant. Just before Hull, you mentioned about bringing Lisa Junior-Pardo as a coach, the potential of that. Is that still on the cards, maybe?
I think it is. It's something, again, because we haven't really spoken about anything football related. It's nothing I've discussed since that day, but it's definitely on the cards. And as I said on that day, Lisa's just a legend and an ambassador of the club regardless. So whatever her decision is, she will very much be part of our football club at many, many different levels. So yeah, but I would love her to come on the coaching staff. I think she's just a terrific person and a brilliant coach and a brilliant woman, and who's got better experience than her in this country? Not many.
No doubt, no doubt. In an ideal world, you mentioned this before, what would you like to happen with the league?
Well, it's a difficult one because I think the ultimate problem has been we're asking the question now, and that's the problem. The question's being asked now, what shall we do now this scenario's on us? And I think realistically, had we asked the question before the season started, we'd have had a more concise majority go with an answer. And I think now what you're going to do is find that everybody's going to cast their vote towards the agenda, their own personal agenda. So if you're near the bottom, you're going to want the league null and voided. If you're near the top, you might want it null and voided, but you'll want promotions and relegations. But you won't want the null and voids. You'll want the points per game scenario because that will mean you get top and you get promoted. And the ones in the middle, I don't know really what they'd go for. So I think there's sort of 3 layers to this, and I don't think you're going to get a straight answer from anybody now. And my answer would reflect what our club needs. And so, if I'm being perfectly honest, you know, and I try and strip my badge off and talk from a neutral perspective, which is very difficult if I'm being honest. If I do talk from that, I believe the consistency of what happened before must carry on, which means the null and void. Because what happens if you don't do that? Well, there's people who could question last year's decision and say, well, hang on, we were top last year and we couldn't go up. But this year, the teams that were top went up. It's a little bit like now that the winners of the North and South League automatically go up to the Championship if they hit the criteria. Whereas when I won it, we had a playoff. When Sheffield won it, they had to play off. There was only one out. The 2 champions went up. And then to change that rule, well, we were 2 years too late. Had we won it 2 years later, we'd have gone up automatically. And that doesn't bring any fairness. That doesn't bring any consistency. It doesn't mean that the rules shouldn't change and develop over time to suit the purpose. But I think with something like this, which is still unique, one, we've played less games this year than last. And we did have a certain outcome last year, which was, if I'm being honest, I think it helped a lot of people knowing there was a line drawn in the sand. And when we came back in the summer, we were starting again. And like I said, right at the beginning of this part, I think the problem really has been that the question wasn't asked before the season, because you'd have had a really consistent answer. There'd have been a good 80% of people would have agreed something with 0 points on the board and no position to defend in the league. So I don't know, is the honest answer. From our perspective, I think there's a bit of consistency. And like I said, I have tried to be neutral with this thought because I have won the league and I know what that feels like. Would I like having that taken away from me? Not really. But you haven't won it till you've won it, until you're over the line. And when we won it for West Brom, it was the last but one game that we physically got the points that made it mathematically impossible for us not to win it. So that went down to the very last game, really, the last but one game. And ultimately, I can speak from that season as well. We were 7th at Christmas and we went and won it. So everybody's still in with a shout of winning leagues and everybody's still in with a shout of going down or saving themselves. So very difficult. This points per game thing, I'm not happy with. I don't like it because it's not fair. It doesn't take into account the home and away, although there's weighted versions of that. It doesn't take into account who you've played and who you've got left to play. Well, that's all subjective or circumstantial on who you've got left to play, isn't it? If you've got top teams left to play, you don't want to play them. You'd rather just take the points per game. If you've got weaker teams, you want to play them and you want a fighting chance. One scenario I have come up with, it will never be done, but I think it's the footballing fighting chance would be, I mean, ultimately our leagues are all 12-team leagues. And I really do think if they want a real footballing outcome and we've got limited time, which is what we're going to have to fixtures in, I think we should have, let's find out where the top 4 are, the middle 4 are, and the bottom 4 are in each league and put 3 mini leagues in each league. Let the top 4 play off for who wins the league and gets promoted. That means a round robin, home and away, 6 games only, and you're done. But they've earned the right to be in the top 4. The top 4 teams are the top 4 teams generally. Look, there's always going to be a little scrap over 5th and 4th. But Okay, let's accept that. And the middle four just play off for footballing positioning. They haven't really got too much to play for, but there's still some reason to do that. And the bottom four will play off 6 games. Then you'll find out. In our situation would be Loughborough, Hull, ourselves, and Middlesbrough. Well, let us 4 play off. Let's see if the footballing outcomes really decide, and the bottom 2 go down. So really, our mini league would be the hardest in the sense of there's 2 that could go down. The top division, the top 4 would have. There's only one spot that becomes champions, of course, which makes it tough. But we all start from 0 points, and we kick on from there, and we find out who the worst 2 teams are at the bottom 4, and we find out who the top team is at the top 4, which is ultimately what you want to get to. It means 6 weeks only, and you're done, which is probably what we're going to end up with. We probably won't end up with much more than 6 weeks to play games of football. It seems like a footballing solution, and actually it's like for like people and clubs who will have a real good chance of representing themselves at the level they're at. And if you lose that mini group, in our case, the bottom 4, if you lose that mini group, you come in the bottom 2 of that mini group. Well, okay, I could take going down then. Much easier than going down on a points per game situation or hanging on by the skin of our teeth on a points per game. So it's a scenario. It's not easy. It's not difficult to put together, and it would ultimately mean finding out points per game maybe on who the top 4 were, the middle 4 and the bottom 4, just so that you've all, as if you'd all played half the league, 11 games. What's your points? That's your position. Now you've got something to fight for. So I don't know. What do you think about that, Charlie?
It's a good idea, but like you say, it's a tough one to implement. And I'm not sure if like the middle teams would agree to accept that, especially the top end. They'd be like, well, we've got a fighting chance of the top 4. I think that would be probably an issue, but I think the bottom 4 would probably be up for it. Do you know? I think that would definitely be a shout for the bottom 4. But I think going up higher than that, I think that's where you get the issue.
Yeah, I think you're right, but it just gives you a chance, doesn't it? You know, a footballing chance rather than models and formulas and all that sort of business. So
what can you do? It's up to the FA, and it's so we can throw theories around, but that's the FA at the end of the day. But that would be a good idea to be honest with you, but it's hard to, I think, implement and get a lot of clubs to sign on for.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not so sure it will be that hard. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, maybe. But let's be honest. For instance, for instance, the bottom 4, I think, would sign up for it. I think they would go for it because it gives you a footballing chance. I think if I'm being honest, the top 4, other than the 5th team, might struggle. But the top 4 would have a go at it because they think, well, we've all got a chance of winning this league now. And like I said, the middle 4, you've generally got very little to play for anyway. If you're in the middle of the pack, you're not going to get relegated. You're not going to get promoted. Or you're not going to win the title, maybe. I mean, there is a chance. As I said, we were 7th, only because we got lots of games in hand, but we were 7th at Christmas when we won it at West Brom. So I don't think it would be that difficult to organise. I don't think it would be that difficult to get people to sign up. And ultimately, it's playing games of football, which I think everybody wants within the time frames, which gives it some footballing outcomes. So we'll see. I mean, you know, it's all about perspective, and it's all about people signing in and really backing that sort of process. But it's just my left field thinking really on that sort of stuff.
For sure, I think when you put it like that about just forget just playing games of football, I think a lot of teams probably would sign up just for that reason alone. Because a lot of teams just want to get out there and play.
Yeah, and 8 teams ultimately, 8 teams out of 12 have still got big outcomes to play for, and like I said, the middle of the pack, really just have to play some games and say there's some conclusion. They come 5th in the league, or they came 7th. You know, there's something which they're ultimately going to be around anyway. You know, if the league was to play out for the full season. So we'll see. Plus, let's be honest, when we play games of football, there's a cost.
Yeah.
So if you're just playing for the playing sake, probably not so intriguing, really, or something that people would desperately want to do. But to play football and still have some position to play for and something to fight for, whether you're top or bottom, it makes that expense worthwhile. Otherwise, you end up playing a friendly league at the expense of travelling on coaches, and that's just not sustainable financially, particularly this year.
Definitely. Finally, off camera, we mentioned about rustiness. With the players not playing with each other for so long, do you get that element of rustiness playing together, or is it just a fitness sort of thing, would you say?
I think it's a bit of everything. That's why elite players practice what they practice, whether you're playing basketball and shooting hoops for an hour a day. You practice that because you need to, not because it's a natural God-given talent that's just there to turn on and off. And training's really important. So yeah, there's rustiness all round, and that's why my concern is, regardless of how fit you are, 2 weeks of training wouldn't be enough, because all teams would be in the same boat ultimately, but it's not enough. You're not representing your club properly. You're not representing yourself as an individual player, and that's difficult then, because your integrity starts to go, in the league a little bit, because it's like, well, people really didn't have a proper chance. And as I alluded to, it'll be your strength in depth then that counts, rather than what you've got at your disposal in terms of, are our starting 11 as good as their starting 11? Well, if we pick up 2 or 3 injuries and we've got a slim squad, well, we're in a worse boat than a squad who are bigger. And that ultimately comes back to your recruitment and so on and so on and so on. But the bottom line is, you're top of the league for a reason, and you're bottom of the league for a reason. And in most cases, it's about resources as much as the players, more so than players. I think you can have good players and have no resource and be near the bottom. Very rarely you're near the bottom with lots of resource. So lots of things to contemplate regarding that question, really, mate. But I think ultimately, as human beings, if you don't stay active with whatever you do in life, whether you're an artist, whether you're a footballer, whether you're a teacher, whatever you do, whatever job you do, if you don't practice it and carry on doing it consistently and remain active, you don't come back in the same breath straight off the bat, and certainly not with just 2 weeks at it.
Definitely. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Graham?
No, it's all good, mate. I'm pleased to speak to you, of course, and I just hope everybody's safe and healthy out there, and chomping at the bit like we are, just to get back to a little bit of football, but making sure that it's done in a safe way. So if we're not safe, I don't think we should play, and that's the bottom line. And if we are safe, let's go, let's rock and roll. We played through previous lockdown situations and tiered scenarios, and we've been pretty safe, and I think that's something that we can, everybody, all the football clubs involved in our league, certainly in the leagues around us, can be proud of. That there's been very, very little news of clubs folding, in terms of week to week, off the back of having some real bad cases. So that's credit to the clubs and the players particularly who've been doing that. So hopefully we can get back ASAP, but certainly need to be safe.
Definitely. Great talking to you, Graham, and hopefully football's back soon.
That's what we're all hoping for, mate. Thanks a lot, pal.